Welcome back, everyone, to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Murph, and we're going to be going over some smaller market cap coins that have been suggested by people that in the comments sections on my previous videos that I've looked through them and I like them enough that they were worth talking about. I'm not invested in either of these three. That doesn't mean there aren't interesting things about them. And that doesn't mean they won't have great returns. In fact, I just can't be invested in everything. But the only reason I'm talking about these three is because there were things about them that I liked that I thought was worth talking about, particularly what's going on with their charts. Now, we're in a market that several things have already popped off and they've 8x'd. Some have 10x, some have 3x'd and 4x. And they get less interesting once they've already access so much of those gains, because I don't think we're in the massive hype cycle that we will be in earlier this year. So a 5x gain or a 10x gain is pretty darn significant, and in my opinion, ready for a pullback in some ways. So what do I like about this first one? This is Swingby, and they have an interesting value proposition. And so let's go to their website, and they're a warp speed protocol to move Bitcoins into wrapped Bitcoin. So, this is something that we want, when you have Bitcoins and you want to be able to use it in, say, a smart contract. Well, Bitcoin doesn't have that functionality. So some of this problem has been solved in that you can wrap Bitcoin. What they're providing here is a faster, trustless way to wrap Bitcoin. Now, if they extend this into more than just the Ethereum blockchain, like I've talked about before, Ethereum's blockchain is going to get really congested. And so other blockchains are really going to be getting a lot of the traffic. Imagine you're on a freeway in California during rush hour and you're doing 2 miles an hour, or you're stopped for 30 minutes and all of a sudden some other highways open up and you can jump on them and everything's moving fast. And so I think a lot of traffic will get diverted away from Ethereum, which is why I'm so bullish on Cardano, but also Polkadot and some of the other blockchains like Cosmos, which has been running solid. And there will be others, OneChain, but the major two who I think offload that is Polkadot and Cardano, as long as they deliver with what they're working on. And it seems that they have the team to do that. I particularly like Cardano, but honestly, the developers behind Polkadot are top-notch as well. So they've got some potential. Even just looking at the chart, there's some good things. So let's look at the chart. Well, before we look at the chart, let's look at some. When I'm evaluating something, one of the first things I do is I come to CoinGecko. And at CoinGecko, I'm just looking at what is the price, what is the current market cap. I do look at the max supply. I look at the fully diluted valuation. Now, sometimes it shows this, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on how much data they have on both the circulating supply and the max supply. So only 1/10 of their supply is in circulation, which begs further questions. When I'm researching something much deeper, I then usually go to the website. I try to find out their tokenomics. Sometimes their website or white paper has that. What I want to know is, what do those token releases look like? If only a small percentage of the supply is out there, when is that going to be released over time? Because, like many of us who bought XRP, not really knowing too much about it, like XRP has some great promise. Part of the reason it hasn't taken off better than it has, because there are some great things about it, is because one of the original team members who helped build it was paid out in XRP, and he has been selling off his 10,000 a month, or whatever the number was, 10 million a month that he could, trying to get completely out. And so what happens is those that are holding it, expecting it to appreciate in value, there's more supply. Or in this case with XRP, a lot of times the supply equaled the demand because of that person selling, plus some other things. I think Ripple was selling, and it kept the supply higher than it should have been, and so the price never really went up much. It's bounced around between 60 cents and like 12 or 15 cents for forever. And I think if there wasn't such a huge circulating supply with some of the original team, that kept selling off, I think that price would have done better for those who believed in the project and wanted to see some appreciation. So having paid that price painfully, I always look at what is the max supply versus the circulating supply, because Ripple still holds so much of the tokens. And so that isn't to say that they can't change the world, and I hope they do, and I hope they win their SEC lawsuit, because that makes sending money through banks to anywhere in the world so much cheaper, which some of that value will be passed on to us for those of us that still use the banking system. The problem that they're solving is good, but that just reiterates the circulating supply versus max supply problem. And sometimes you see this, and it's because they have a bunch saved for staking rewards, or they have a very slow unlock release schedule for their team. And so much of the circulating supply really won't hit the market for 4, 5, 10, 15, sometimes 20 years. And so really that is the next question to ask. So the charts are saying good things about this. And I drew out here, remember we look for W patterns. And what often happens is it might even come up a little bit higher, and then usually you'll see a retrace. And when it does this retrace, what happens is some people who have been holding for a long time and they frequently bought up here, or they had recently bought, and it starts retracing, they get worried and they dump. And then after that dump happens, it takes off, which causes a lot of frustration with people because they just haven't prepared for this kind of thing, and they're new. Now, all of us have done this. I was new in 2017, and even though I was an experienced investor with real estate and just a little bit of experience with stocks, some of this happened to me, right? Because I had so many hopes behind it, and I hadn't learned to take my emotions out of it more. And so over the past 4 years of research, I did learn more about technical analysis and evaluating technical analysis. And it's funny as I look back how often this happens, and you see some huge volume coming in here, and that's an indicator. That's a really good indicator. So also you saw some big volume here before some runs, but and there was some huge volume here as people dumped, and then, people were buying on the way down because it looked like such a good price. So it is relatively a new project for how long it's been trading, just a little bit. So the chart says good things. There are lots of things pumping right now, though, and there's lots of charts that look good. We're going to look at the next one, which is Nuls. And same thing, the chart has some good things about it. I like what they're doing. Whether they'll deliver on it, we'll see. But again, I look at the market cap. I want to look at the circulating supply versus the max supply. So about half of it is in circulation already. And so a lot of the risk is priced in, meaning only another half of it could get dumped in some form or fashion. So that makes me feel better if I were to be investing in this myself. And it is one of them I've had on my radar for a long time. I haven't ever bought any yet, but that's just because there's so many good things vying for my attention that I haven't made the purchase. But that doesn't mean I'm not and haven't been interested in it. I just haven't yet. I do, in my research also, one of the things I look at is what markets are they on already. So they're already on Binance. They're on KuCoin. They're on some big exchanges, MXC. So Wobi, yeah, so they're out there a lot. The only major thing that they're really not on yet is Coinbase. But, a lot of tokens that are great and aren't on Coinbase yet. By the time they get on Coinbase, it's usually pretty long down the process, and only if they reach pretty high in the market, on the coin rankings on CoinMarketCap or something. So they may get added at some point. Who knows? Coinbase makes their decisions sometimes interestingly. I'm sure there's a strategy behind it. Okay, so what is Nuls is really the question. What problem are they trying to solve? So this is a problem I remember in the website days that they were trying to solve, of making websites that were easy and kind of drag and drop and put together. And if you think about that for blockchain, that's really the problem they're trying to solve, is being able to piece together components pretty easily and set up a simple, cost-effective, time-saving solution for developers that have minimal blockchain experience. So this is actually a complex thing to deliver on. They can look at how it was done with websites and kind of function off of that. Whether they'll be successful, probably. I think they're leading in this. There is room for this to grow. Not every company needs blockchains, though. So blockchains work really good for some things, and for other things, they're terrible. Centralized databases are much faster than decentralized databases. So the only advantage decentralized databases have is giving accessibility to others while still being able to secure it well, as long as you set it up correctly. So a lot of companies don't really ever need to go to blockchain. There's many things that are built on blockchain that don't need to be built on blockchain. It's just the hype right now, and they're coasting on that hype. And so certain things will need blockchains, other things won't. It just depends on what problems they're trying to solve. But I don't see a time where decentralized databases are faster than a newly set up centralized database, because centralized databases can be much, much faster. All right. So, and as long as they control well their own security, centralized databases can also be very secure as long as they set them up well. So, is there need for this? Yes. Let's go to the next step. How do the charts look? Well, what I like about this chart is you're maybe not even at the bottom, but you're probably pretty close. Going back to, let's look at an all-time high. All-time high was $8.53. All-time low was 9 cents. And where are they at now? Okay, so they're at 38 cents. So they've come up a lot as far as US dollars. So the chart I'm looking at specifically is Bitcoin. So that's why it looks so bad, is Bitcoin has kept running. But they've actually gone up in value from their previous low, which was probably not there, maybe there. No, November. Bitcoin would have been pretty high price in November 2017. So probably around here was the low in dollar value, though they're lower in Bitcoin value right here. But I use the chart of Bitcoin value because I don't know about you, but my goal is to always accumulate more Bitcoin, and it's high on my importance list. And so this is the chart I frequently look at, is whatever altcoin versus Bitcoin, because I want to know how the altcoin is going to do relative to Bitcoin, because my goal is to always increase my position in Bitcoin. All right, and this looks decent. We're probably seeing some W's, smaller W's here. What we often see is, so it's a good sign when it has a higher low on the second leg of the W. And then we often see a little kick here before it does this, and I won't be surprised if we see this. One of the massive, massive good things about this is this kind of volume. And look how their volume has picked up. And this shows high amount of interest. Not only has the volume picked up, but it's not getting dumped on as the volume has picked up. I mean, some people have sold, and they've waited this long, and they're like, oh, finally I can get out from under it. And it's just because investing is a tool that, you know, takes money from the impatient and hands it over to the patient. And this is where patience pays off. Because human emotion usually has us chasing the coins that have already pumped. And it just is the way it is. We're hearing a coin and it's pumped like, 500%. And we're like, oh my gosh, I want to sell my token that's doing nothing and get into that. Well, at 500%, it might have had most of its gains already before a pullback. And so then we roll it into that only to catch it just in time for the pullback, right as the one we were in takes off. And it's frustrating as can be when that happens to you, and it's happened to all of us. What I try to do is not have it keep happening to me. Make sense? All right, so let's go to the next one. Let's look at Algorand. Now, Algorand is interesting. This is one that's had a lot of hype, and it has a lot of, big money backers behind it. And if I'm remembering right, when they did their initial ICO, they raised like 120 million between some pre-sales and the actual token sale. And so they got a lot of money. Now, when they did go on the market, I think also they did some kind of Dutch auction and they sold off tokens at 240 a piece, only to have, when it went on the market, the price dump. And so they did do something really cool, that the people that had bought it like 240, they offered them the chance to sell their tokens back to Algorand at 90% of the price, which isn't as good as 100% of the price, but it's a lot better than what a lot of companies offered, which was nothing. And so some of those people sold back, and the price has just been in the dumps. And there's some big capital behind this that I'm sure they're just frustrated as can be, because many other things in the meantime have taken off and done exceptional, while Algorand hasn't really done anything yet. And I say yet, I mean compared to what people paid, right? And especially compared relative to what Bitcoin is doing. So I'm sure those backers were just like, oh my gosh, I could have just kept the money in Bitcoin and done so much better, and they could have. So does Algorand have a future? Well, let's check out its website. Let's talk a little bit about the problem it wants to solve. Now, building the borderless economy, I mean, the whole of crypto is building the borderless economy, right? Now, it is a high power blockchain, and that is the goal. And they do have really good people behind them, which is why so many venture capitalists were interested in backing them. You can go through the website. I'm not going to go into it too much. This has a lot of hype behind it, and a lot of strength behind who is driving it. And the old saying is that people don't invest in companies, they invest in teams. And part of the reason this has some appeal is the team behind it. And so it's interesting that they haven't done well yet. And what's funny is sometimes the things that get all the hype and attention in the early days just don't deliver very fast. But that doesn't mean they won't deliver. Remember how long Cardano took. So you are seeing some good things from the charts. And that's really most of what I'm going off of as to whether they're interesting or not. Just also providing a little bit of history. Let's look, though, at the circulating supply versus max supply. So if I were to buy Algorand, one of the questions I would be asking is, where is the rest of this supply that is not currently in circulation, and when is it coming into circulation? Because that's a big concern, because right now the market cap is at 650 million, but are all of a sudden the price starts pumping and the venture capitalists get access to their tokens, and then boom, they dump them on you? That would be a concern. Other than that concern, the charts look really good with all this supply, all this trading volume coming in. And especially since versus Bitcoin, it has become relatively cheap. And what happens is, as Bitcoin takes off, a lot of times you see this, but where people gain ground, that swing trade is they swing trade into Bitcoin as Bitcoin is making some runs. And then as Bitcoin hits pretty high on the Bitcoin dominance chart, they then swing back into some altcoins that they like, and they catch the gains. So they swing back in, say, here, and then they catch these gains as it does right up. And let's see if we can see some W's in here. Kind of, but this goes lower here. Does that make sense? So I'm not going to count that. That's more of a troubling sign. What we don't want to see is M's. This looks more like an M, right? So W's are more attractive. Now you do see a W here, and you do see behind that lots of volume, which is very interesting. So I wouldn't be surprised to see if this does a big run coming up. All right. So Algorand, they have a good website, and there's so much you can read on here, and there's been lots of videos by some high-profile YouTubers. So if you want to inform yourself more on those, I like what's going on the charts of all three of these, and that's why I talked about them today. So Algorand, Nuls, and Swingby. not currently invested in any of the three, and presently I probably won't be. I'm really happy with where my positions are on things, and unless I see something amazing, I'm not going to trade some of my Bitcoin into something unless it's just super amazing and I can't pass it up. I did just buy some Lena because I like that feel. That's made me a lot of money from thanks to INJ, and Lena is working on derivatives across different platforms. And Lena came to me, I've heard of it multiple times. I just hadn't looked deep enough into it until I was delivering on my promise of if somebody gave me a token symbol, what their market cap is, and why they liked it, that I would at least look into it. And when I looked in deeper on Lena, I loved what I was seeing. I didn't just like what I was seeing, I loved what I was seeing. I didn't love going in at 4 after it had just done a 4x, but still the market cap was so low versus where other derivatives projects are, as well as them working to integrate it with Polkadot and other blockchains versus just being on the Ethereum network. So that's what caught my attention, and thank you to the users that brought that to my attention. And these other ones are good finds too. They are gems. So I don't have anything negative to say about them. I just have positives. And just because I didn't, in order to buy something, I have to sell something else. And being really happy with my positions, I'm just hesitant to move anything right now until some of my positions, other than Cardano, which I am not selling till I feel like it's the top of the market, when some of those go through some massive gains, I probably will be more open to moving that into projects that haven't yet. Some of them I'm just patiently holding and not ready to sell them to roll them into something else. And I always keep a supply of some Bitcoin holding back, right, for when I do see things that I really, really, really like. But as far as the trading that I have out there that's ready to trade, all that's tied up in projects that I'm very happy with. So I won't be selling that to get into any of these three, even though they've got some good things about them. So do want to thank you guys for joining me. If you do see something you really like, I want to hear about it. But please give me the ticker symbol. I want to know what the current market cap is, and I especially want to know what you like about it. If you send me those three things, I promise I will at least take a look at it. Can't promise whether I'll do a video on it. It just has to do with how much I like it. Also, by subscribing to the channel, the goal of that is so that I can get the developers to come on personally, because wouldn't it be more interesting if we had some interviews with the project teams on these of Swingby and Nuls and Algorand, and I could have them in here talking to you guys, and just you can hear more of it directly. Also, it gives you a clue of what's going on beneath the surface, because a lot of times in this space, so much of what's above the surface catches so much attention. And that basically tells us what coins we already missed out on, because they already are pumping, because whatever they were working on below the surface is now out there in the news and announced, and everyone's excited about it. What I like to do is I like those ones where there's not a lot going on right now. In all three of these, there's not a lot going on above the surface, but really I don't know what's going on below the surface. They might have amazing things that could lead to 5 or 10 X's even in this environment, and maybe 50 or 200 X's in months to come when there's a lot of FOMO going on. I just don't know enough about what's going on beneath the surfaces on these. So growing a large subscriber base will help me be able to call them or reach out to them, have them reach out to me as well and talk to them. And so for that, I need your help. If you like the content you're getting here and you subscribe, it really helps me get there. Also, if you hit the like button, it helps YouTube push this out to more people so that they can at least get their eyes on it. And if they like what they're hearing, subscribe, so that then I can reach out to these project teams directly, which is the end goal of creating this YouTube channel. Because like you, I'm just an investor. I'm an investor trying to do the best especially during this window that we're in right now of 2021 and early 2022. Just with the cyclical nature of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, probably that's going to be our window before we then start to enter another crypto winter, which I held everything through the last crypto winter, and that was miserable. I don't want to make that mistake again. So this window of time, let's use it well to really make it rain for us. Guys, with that said, we will see you later.